I call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are physically present in the school library, but due to state mandates and in order to maintain physical distancing, we are not yet able to welcome community member participants to board meetings in person. But we thank you for joining us virtually. Please know that all webinar community member participants will remain on mute during the meeting unless they have put in a request to speak during the public comment period. Mrs. Martin, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Our directors, Kelly, Erdman, Fowler, and Klein are absent. All of the members are present.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt tonight's meeting agenda as presented?
I'll move.
Second. Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Moving on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Messinger.
Well, good evening, everyone. We have survived a week of school, and we're happy about that. I want to, I guess, publicly acknowledge that we certainly know we had some hiccups along the way. Transportation, I talked to DB Fisher, while they said it was 100% improved over last year, there's still a ways to go with transportation. We have some issues that we're going to sit and talk now that the busy first week is over. And work through some of those things. From a technology standpoint, I think we have some teachers off and running, and we have some folks that this is very new for. We also have some families that it's very new for. And there's been a few hiccups here and there with that. But overall, there's been quite a bit of positive. I know the teachers are really busy working at learning new things. And I've already seen some adjustments being made as I walk around and see classrooms. It is great to see the kids back. I can't describe how happy I am to walk and see human beings that are walking around. We have things starting to take place like athletics already. We set some tents up today. So that we can expand some lunches we have in the courtyard. So if you want to take a walk and see some of the new tents, some expanded lunches and also some music opportunities for them so that we can more easily stay social distance. And athletics is full bore with some scrimmages and games getting started. Well, golf's already playing and some other things going on beginning next week. We have some issues to work out with our athletes yet. Took a survey. I was happy to see that almost 99% of our athlete parents want to have sports return in the fall, so they're excited about that. But we're still working out a few transportation things with athletes for the kids that are not here on the days that they might have a game and or need to be here to practice. We have some ideas, and by the end of the week we'll get that straightened out. As far as some next steps for us, we have to remember that in the middle of this, we have planning to do for the future. And the folks at home, our public, our community are going to see some things coming out in the next month or two about our vision statement, our mission statement, and some long-term plans that we want to get together groups of people to begin working on. That's going to be a priority this fall. And even though we have some COVID things, we're a little sick of doing plans that revolve around COVID. We are happy to maybe start working on some plans that revolve around other things. And so we'll be working on that this fall. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you. Item number E, old business. Is there any old business for discussion this evening? All right, moving along to the public comment period. Those wishing to make public comment were asked to submit that request by 6:25 this evening via email or online form. Am I correct, Mrs. Martin, that there are no requests this evening?
There are no requests.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move to item G, items for board action on the consent calendar. This includes items that were discussed last week, items 1 through 14. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
Motion to approve the consent calendar as it is listed.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, I need to abstain.
Your mic.
Sorry. I'll need to abstain from item 12B. I've already filled out the paperwork to Pat Moore.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Martin, please note that Director Gray is abstaining from item 12B.
D.
D, okay, sorry. Item 12D. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, this is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The item has passed. Now we move on to the discussion items, items for board action. This includes several items that were not on our discussion last week. Item number 1 is staff advancement. Dr. Messinger.
Yes, we have 2 employees that are eligible for column movement that turned in paperwork between the 2 meetings. And those 2 are listed there to move to Masters Plus 15 and Masters.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the staff advancements as presented?
Make a motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Item number 2, employment.
Yes, we have the employment of Lori Baker, high school learning support assistant. That replaces a vacancy created by the redesignation of Denise Snyder.
May I have a motion to approve the employment as presented?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Item number 3, Crabtree, Rohrbach and Associates.
This is the authorization of Crabtree, Rohrbach and Associates to proceed with schematic design. Before we do that, Leanne's going to talk through a little bit of the numbers. You've seen some of this from Brad before, but we took into account the cost savings that they talked about last week, and she's going to talk through some of those numbers for us.
Kirk, I'm going to need my screen sharing enabled. Okay, so what I put together is a quick illustration using what Brad Remy had given us last time when he gave us our bond finance presentation. And as you can see, I have our current debt, which is the current bonds that we owe, and in the second left column, we have the 1.3 million is what is already included in our budget for the 2021 school year. And then you move over, and this is what Brad Remy has proposed as our new debt, which would be the $40 million plus the $2.5 million in financing costs that he included for the potential elementary school that we are discussing. And I just totaled those 2 together over in the total debt column. And then what we did for the anticipated savings in the next column was we took the savings from 12 professional staff, 15 classified staff, and then the $25,000 in annual energy savings. Now, so we assumed that we wouldn't have the 12 professional staff and 15 classified staff for this projection. And what we did was we put that over there, and I reduced the debt amount that would be increasing by those savings So as you can see in the school year 2022, we would be adding an additional $637,000 of debt to our budget. So we would need to come up with that additional $637,000 for that first year. And then once we start experiencing the savings, you can see that it's actually, the savings is actually, the school is actually paying for itself through these projected savings. So what we're saying is that if we would build one elementary school and be able to take all the savings that Crabtree and Warbach proposed to us, that elementary school would be paying for our debt payments in these years.
I want to be clear to both the public and the board. This is debt increase to the current budget. Current budget includes a $1.3 million bond payment right now. So the savings to the current budget is what's listed there in that last column, beginning in 2023, when the building will be consolidated of $500,000, a little over $500,000. However, ultimately that 1.3 would drop off. You can see down there in 2029, that 1.3 would drop off. So even though that savings is to the current budget, if we did not move ahead, then we would not have that $1.3 million payment after 2029. So I just want to be clear there. I also want to be clear that savings in professional staff is not taking into account a reduced number of students as Crabtree predicted. We did not jump into, I think he got all the way up to 20 professional staff. So if that prediction comes true, there would be additional savings there for the professional staff. However, because that is 4 or 5 years down the road, we didn't put that in here yet. I'll believe that one when I see that one, but just wanted to be fair in terms of how we present it. Other questions either for Leanne or for myself?
Yeah, just what in 2030 there jumps up, we drop off current debt and then the new debt pops up. Remind me what that's for?
He structured that, and Leanne, you correct me if I'm wrong, but
I couldn't hear what he was saying. I'm sorry. I can hear you, Gary.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. In 2030, we drop off the existing debt, but then it pops up on new debt. So it goes from 1.7 to 2.7 at the same time.
Correct. And Brad structured it like that to kind of take it easier on the school district, to phase it in at a later time like that. So it's not, the higher amount right in 2023 when we're first starting off, so that it gives us time to stagger our necessary tax increases.
Okay.
other questions?
So the 12 professional staff anticipation, that's not a guarantee. As we said last week, we're not absolutely planning to reach that number. That's just what we anticipate may happen, or what would happen based upon capacity and needs of the school at that point.
Based upon, well, that's the number that if we last year could have snapped our finger to move from 4 buildings to 1 building, we would be able to reduce by that number. We're not going to do it that way. We're going to make sure it's done by attrition.
Right.
I'll have a conversation with the union about if we need staff in the meantime, to probably use a long-term sub in a position rather than hiring a contract due to the fact that it would be without a position down the road. And it will be hard, I think, to move 12. You never know. People move, people get married, people have babies. It's hard to tell, it's hard to project. It will probably be hard to get to 12 in 2 years, but I think that over 3 or 4 years, we'll get to 12.
So the number's fluid, but only probably in the tens of thousands once we get there. If it's a 66,000 savings,
Oh,
And that number
yeah.
is a fluid number, but it's not largely fluid.
Correct. And it doesn't, it also, while it doesn't take into account additional savings if enrollment does go down, it also doesn't take into account if we were to put a project in like full day K.
Right.
That would take away somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have an estimate, full day K, what that staff was? Is it 4?
It's 3. It would be 3 right now. It's technically this year 3.5. We were able to reduce a half because of the number that went virtual or went B3. But typically it's 4, and next year it would be 4. We're bringing that person back full time.
May I have a motion to approve the CRA authorization as presented?
Motion to approve?
Second. Sorry, Barry.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Item number 4 on the discussion calendar, health and safety plan.
Yeah, this is the approval of the revised health and safety plan. There was an update that came out, surprisingly, the state came out with an update on masks between when this was initially approved and right now. We updated that and we added a couple of things in the appendixes. Our music procedures are helping to and just updating the plan as we will do each month that it changes.
May I have a motion to approve the revised health and safety plan as presented?
I'll make a motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Moving on to item number 5, return to play plan that is revised.
Yeah, same thing. If you remember, the athletic plan was actually the first plan approved back in July. Now we're getting ready for competition. There's been some things that have changed. For instance, in the 11th Lancaster League, school districts will be taking temperatures and symptoms checks prior to leaving, which I think is a smart move. There's still some things that are going to need to be worked out. There are spectators as a conversation. The superintendents have met 3 times in the last 3 school days to talk about spectators. We talked and then it changed, and then we talked again, and now there's some legislation. And so we're going to meet one more time tomorrow and try to finalize spectators. It does look currently as if we will be able to allow spectators. It's just a matter of what they'd like some consistency within 11 Lancaster League. But regardless, the spectator language is not currently in this. We'll probably see this again next month with that language. But for now, we've updated and the revised plan is there.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the revised return to play plan as presented?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Item number 6, a co-curricular position.
Yes, that's to approve Mrs. Devani as the middle school student council advisor for the upcoming school year.
May I have a motion to approve the middle school student council advisor as presented?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Item number 7, administrative organizational chart.
That's to approve the reorganizational chart that was submitted to you prior to this meeting.
May I have a motion to accept the organizational chart as presented?
Motion to approve the organizational chart as presented.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Item number 8, graduation requirements.
Yes, that's a proposal put to you. This discussion started, it actually started spring of last year in terms of students that have difficulty with keystones. And there are some other options for them in terms of fulfilling graduation requirements. However, it's even more important now because our students did not get a chance to take keystones last spring. And typically, you offer those keystone exams when they complete the course. And there's a reason for that, because if you're anything like me, I do not remember much of my biology class in high school. And the further you are away from the class, the more difficult it is to pass those exams. So what school districts across the state are doing are looking at alternate pathways if they don't already have one established. For us, that would affect, my daughter should have taken her last one, for instance, last year, and now she's a junior, but it also would affect sophomores, it would affect freshmen, and potentially even 8th graders who take the algebra keystone at the end of their 8th grade year. So the proposal there is for some alternate assessments and or ways to achieve your graduation requirements without taking the keystones. The alternate assessments can be as simple as taking SAT and getting a passing score on your SAT or PSAT. The VOTEC kids take a test, an assessment as well, and they would have the ability to pass that. So there's some alternates there. And then the other thing that's in there is a change. We have a computer applications course that is really outdated. The way it was described to me by my daughter was how to open up a Word document and minimize it and close it. It's now probably a 5th grade class when they get their Chromebooks and no longer a 9th grade class because they know how to do that. So in order to get rid of that, we had to come up with something else for them to take. There's, I believe, 5 options listed there, including ultimately maybe a revised or advanced computer applications class, which hasn't been written yet. But we'll look at the curriculum for something like that down the road. But there's some other options there. So those are the items in that graduation requirement proposal.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the graduation requirements as presented?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I just want to say that this is proactive, and I appreciate the effort to address that situation before it became a problem, real problem.
Is there any further discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. Moving on to item J, we have reports from our representatives. So first up is the Career and Technology Center. Director Klein is not here this evening. Director Marlowe, do you have any update?
I have nothing to report.
All right, thank you. We did receive some information in a newsletter on that we can look at. Item number 2, our intermediate unit representative, Director Murray. Do you have an update for us this evening?
Other than the IU is moving along with everything as smoothly as they can, and they're doing a fantastic job. And again, very thankful for all the promotion that they've been doing for our virtual schooling, and I'm thankful to be a part of the IU. So thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, our legislative PSBA liaison, Director Nam. Can you speak to that this evening?
Yes, just real quick, you all should have received an email from PSBA. The virtual advocacy day is October 8th this year. Our advocacy day from the spring was canceled due to everything that's happening. This one is going to be a virtual advocacy day. As you know, legislation is moving and it's hot, and there's a lot of things that impact us, and if you're interested in those things at all, I would encourage everybody to participate.
Thank you. Item K, is there any new business for discussion this evening? All right, there are some dates to remember listed at the bottom. October 6th is our next school board meeting. October 9th and 12th, there is no school. Those are teacher and service days. And then October 13th is the following school board meetings. Is there anything else for the good of the evening? Good of the order? May I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. And I call this meeting adjourned. Have a good evening.
Glad how's your granddaughter liking?
So far.